B is not a mountain, by the way. Good. Well, it is actually. It actually is right on the Bear Creek, and that is the Bear Valley. Yes, but it is where the creek runs through. The creek actually makes the valley. Yes, and that is the Bear Creek, which comes down to the sulfur ponds there and comes down through. Good. How about C? What do we got for C? Good. The Bear Gap. And D. Good. That's the Big Lick Mountain. Yes. Okay. Just go to your regular notes there. This is not on Canvas. Just going to go over a couple of facts about coal. Just a quick refresher there. We'll take a look at the culm pile. Anybody remember what culm is? C-U-L-M. Culm. Nicholas, please. Well, it could be. It's considered the impurities, yes. Bad, agreed. Now, let's say it again. Yep, definitely too small. Good. And as you're looking there, you can see 2.5 million tons. Eventually, they did make charcoal briquettes out of it. And, like if you have I said yesterday, if you have a propane grill, sits in the bottom, kind of soaks up the grease that comes off your grill, you get the idea. But that's the culm pile. Polish Row. What about Polish Row? Anybody remember what that is? Yes, it was territory, the homes owned by the coal company, and anything else. Good. Yes, mostly immigrants from Poland. Yes. Okay, very good. All right, here's what I want to do. I want to give you a couple of facts about lichens. Well, about coal. It has to do mostly with lichens. Let me say it that way. You don't have to write this part down, but I do want you to just take a look at the map one more time. And I know I've explained this 100 times, but just keep in mind there you can see the Lichens Valley Railroad, which went right through the town. Okay, the road's still curved. You go to Lichens, you can see that. Lichens Family Practice is actually right there. And of course, you can also see the two creeks there. On both sides, you have the Wickanisco, more commonly referred to as Black Creek, and of course, you have the Rattling Creek as well. Okay, two important creeks to keep in mind. And when we get to the 72 flood, you can understand why Lichens was really hammered in 1972, 50 years ago this summer. And some say that Lichens hasn't recovered yet, although I can tell you this, Lichens has definitely come back a lot since I was in high school. Lichens has really made a comeback. You have some restaurants, things like that. You didn't have that before. Okay, well, that said, I'll give you a couple of facts. First of all, coal, you're looking at about 350 million years old. Just be aware of that number. It should be an easy point on the test. 350 million years. And I'll tell you this, when I used to burn coal in my old house, I used to get coal delivered in the summer. Not that I was burning it. Anybody know why? Why did I do it in the summertime?
Is it cheaper?
It is, yes. Because there's less demand for it. So I got it delivered in the summer. It wasn't much cheaper, maybe like $10 a ton, $20 tops, but still. I'm going to use it anyway, why not? My neighbor also burned coal at the same time. And he once said he doesn't like getting it delivered in the summer because it gets old by the time you're going to burn it. Do you see the irony there? Those 3-4 months really make a difference when it's 350 million years old. Right? But now what he was probably referring to is that it dries out too much and it makes it a lot more dusty, and things like that. But I got it in the summer and that was that. Okay. You're looking at about 500 to 600 people worked in the mines at any given time. And again, I really want to point out a lot of people who worked there. Yeah, it was tough and it was hard work and things like that. But people that I've talked to that worked in the mines, including my relatives, my great grandfather, they were proud. They were proud people. They give an honest day's work for honest pay. Take notice I didn't say good pay. It wasn't great pay. No, nobody's getting rich out of being a coal miner. Coal owner, mine owner, yes. One of the workers, no. Okay, but about 500 to 600 people working. At this point, it would have been all men. Okay, it would have been all men. All right, breakers. Do you want to spend a little bit of time on this? The breakers, what they literally did was break coal. Coal does not come out of the ground in any set size. Okay, it could be this size. Now, take a look at this piece. Besides the spider web, do you see that hole there? What do they got holes for?
Judge if the one way thing is coal or not.
Well, actually, I see your point, but that's not it. More than likely, this was drilled and they would put a post in this to keep the tunnel open so it wouldn't cave in. Okay? Or it could have been something they drilled to put dynamite in and blast the coal loose. And that's what they did. Okay? Now, this piece actually came from Bear Valley. Did anybody ever go to Conservation Club or any of the outdoor clubs up to Bear Valley and plant trees by any chance? A group of students in this class actually went up there with Mr. Budak before he retired and found this piece of coal up there. They carried it the whole way back from Bear Valley for me. We had pizza one day for that. I mean, think about that, carrying this thing. Anybody want to try holding this thing?
Yeah.
Come on up.
Oh, I'm writing this.
Anybody else want to in the meantime? It's not
Let's see
light.
how heavy it is.
Now don't break your foot.
Not bad.
Not bad? How would you like to carry it about 2.5 miles?
I would. Oh,
Eh.
yeah,
Eh? Chloe, you coming?
They probably traded it off every so couple feet.
Oh, I'm sure. Now ask them if they actually had a backpack. What do you think? 2 miles?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
You want to stand there a while?
Hold it like this.
You can be
Especially
the.
climbing up over
Yeah, you can-
The
rocks.
coal shower?
That's our visual aid.
I wouldn't put it on your
Now.
shirt. You're gonna get cold
Just-
dust on your shirt.
With all seriousness, go ahead and hold that. Coal, as I said, comes out of the ground, and then what happens is you put it on a breaker. Okay? And what the breaker does is break it down into various sizes. Have you ever heard them run the breaker up here at the Evil Quarry by any chance? If you ever hear that thing, you think that the whole earth is shaking. I mean, it really cracks. Cracking that would be about 10 times louder because of the amount. And what you would do is then break it into different sizes. Okay?
It's just
You can
nice.
set that down if you'd like. Just put it right there on the desk. This would be more of like a stove coal. Okay?
It's just like running a feed now.
Yeah.
It's like a little-
You can pass it around, or if you want to just look at it, that's fine too. This is actually rice coal. Okay? Which is about the size of rice. This would be more like your nut, maybe buck. Really about the only thing they mine anymore or actually produce is the stove and the rice coal and barley. And that's about it. Okay? Right now, today, I just saw there's a coal company that's selling coal for about $250 a ton
Where's that?
in Schuylkill County.
Superior. Or
Maybe.
Verizon or for me.
Yeah, right. You're wanted. I think Superior. Yeah, it would
Yeah.
be Superior.
Yeah,
pretty
I
sure
think that's where we get ours. I forget how much it was.
Did it go up? Everything has gone up, so I would imagine it might have since I saw
I think
that.
I think it goes around that though.
$250 actually is not terrible.
No, 'cause we got just shy of 3 tons.
I get 2 times for $420.
I think ours was like 360 or 380. I think.
So there you go, about 250.
Oh, no.
But 360, that would be, yeah,
And we almost burned through that.
I believe it. It's been cold. It doesn't take long, especially if you're heating your whole house in your hot water. And
Well, we don't even use that in the house. We have 2 Harmon coal wood stoves out in the shed and out in the garage that we run all the time.
I believe it. Because I used to burn about 6 ton a year, and my house, my old house, was only about 1,400 square feet, which is actually kind of small. And I burned about 6 tons. So, but now I heated hot water and everything else with it. Sometimes people don't do that. So, yeah, it doesn't take much to burn through it. My father-in-law burns about 30 ton a year.
Especially that one stove. You can put 2 5-gallon buckets full in and it'll eat through it.
I believe it.
30 ton a year.
Yeah. But you know what he actually does? He actually opens the hot water valve and it goes under his driveway and melts the ice too.
It's like I know Troutman's on a very cold day. If it's 10 out, they'll go through 7 ton a day.
Over at the meat market?
No, over at the shop
Oh, at the shop. Wow.
in the boiler.
Oh, they,
7 ton a day.
Yeah, if it's like a good 10-degree day and the wind's blowing, it'll go 7 ton a day.
I wonder what that would cost electricity if you don't burn the coal and use electric.
But
it's definitely cheaper.
but they've been using.
I don't
coal,
know,
so
because
they've been
electric's
using
not too
coal,
cheap
so-
either.
You have a good new unit though.
Now let me show you this. After all that discussion on the price of coal, in the year 1985, and these prices vary, but the highest size was $12.95 a ton. Okay, so you can definitely see a big difference price wise. I mean, what are we talking about? 200% change there, price wise. This was actually up in Lycans, okay? And this is part of the Sedesi's Coal Museum. We'll actually watch a video on this tomorrow, okay? But yeah, you can go through it quickly, especially as cold as it's been. When we have those 0 days, it goes pretty fast. Okay, but barley, as I mentioned there, is the most common. Now, I will not test you on knowing every single size of coal, but I want you to know there are various sizes. Now, just to be clear, comes out of the ground, various sizes, you put it on the breaker breaks it, and then it is crushed literally into those sizes, and depending on what size your furnace is, your coal stove, that's what you're going to burn. If you have a coal stove that you stoke yourself, you probably would want the stove coal, which is bigger, so it doesn't burn as fast. If you have a furnace, you're probably going to burn rice or barley. Okay? Okay. What country mines the most coal? What do you think? Go ahead. China is number 1. China is number 1. The United States is number 2. China is number 1, yes.
For like everything.
Well, and if you think about it, there would obviously be a big demand for coal in China because you're looking at 1 billion people, 4 times more people than we have in the United States. So there would be a demand for the coal.
Yeah.
How about this one? Which state produces the most? It is not New York. Pennsylvania is number 4. Go ahead. You're close. I went too quick.
Nice guess.
I didn't see it. It said Wyoming.
Wyoming.
Wyoming is number 1.
And Kentucky's number 2.
Kentucky's number 2. What do you think the second one is? It's our neighbor.
Ohio.
Close. West Virginia. Yeah, West Virginia is number 2. Wyoming, West Virginia, Kentucky, and Pennsylvania. in that order. And just be aware of that. Throw it on the test. Which state produces the most? Just be aware of that. Okay, that's what you want to do. Would I ask you to list all four? No, but just be able to be aware of Wyoming's up there. Pennsylvania, though, definitely in the top 5, weighing in at number 4, as you can see. Yeah, but in West Virginia, it's more readily available. Mm-hmm. And in West Virginia, you have a lot more on the surface. Surface mining is the easiest form of mining. I'll talk to you about that too.
So do they have more anthracite than bituminous?
No, they have more bituminous. And that's a good question. If I would put up there which state produces the most anthracite coal, it would be Pennsylvania, by far. Okay, by far, Pennsylvania is the anthracite number 1 in anthracite. Coal overall, you're looking at Wyoming. Okay, some tools. I want you to know what a vein is. I think this is going to be pretty easy to understand. But a vein would be like you'd have rock, and then this could be the coal vein. And then you might have rock again. So what you're doing is you are mining the vein of coal. Okay, so let's say we're in a mountain here. And the mountain, I don't know, 200 feet tall. Now, of course, we can get down in the ground too and do our slope mining too and shaft mining. This would be an example of a tunnel. So this would be a tunnel going in. Have you ever been to the tunnels? Ashland coal mines, you can go over to Lansford, number 9 mine. It's pretty cool. How big is the one? How high would you say the one in Ashland is? Have you been there? You said? How tall? Yeah, about 10 feet. That would be good. But I want you to understand this. The vein changes. The height of the vein changes. And you can't just blast every piece of rock you come into. So what happens if the vein of coal, and your teeter over there, the vein of coal, the height is 4 feet. How tall are you?
6.
About 6. Now what do you do?
Die.
Probably want to. You're not moving it. You're either working in 4 feet or you get a job somewhere else. And that's the way it is. If that's the size of the vein, you have no choice.
How do you swing your pickaxe?
You get down on your hands and knees and make the best of it. And don't forget, you're getting paid by what you produce, not by the hour. So you're going to say, well, this is too hard to work here and that, and you're only producing, 1 car instead of 3 a day, which, by the way, your goal was to get 3 cars a day out. You get 1, that's what you're getting paid for. And that's it. You get paid by what you do. Okay?
So you can afford it now. Watch.
Well, and that did happen too. So what they did was they would go through with TNT, which is dynamite. I think you get the idea here. And you're going through there. Now, anybody in Lycans, do you know where Bill Sedesi's Coal Museum is by any chance? Were you in Lycans? It's back on North 2nd Street. No, and the poor man passed away last year. But he actually has a replica of a vein. It was 3.5 feet, roughly. And he said that he was on his hands and knees in that vein for 6 months of his life. Every day for 6 months. And that was the way it was. That's the size of the vein. That's what it is. Okay? Common mining tools, shovel, pick. You get the idea. You don't have to write down everything. I think you understand. You're going to need a shovel and a pick. But I do want you to know particularly the vein. The vein doesn't always change. Now, if it's a comfortable 10 feet or so, you got it made. But if the vein's only 3 feet or something, then you got a problem. Here's a good example of one. Okay? And you can take a look at that. Notice that they are only in 36 inches. You see the way they have their heads cocked to the side? And they are just trying to literally throw the coal up over their shoulder into the bucket. Okay? They're in 36 inches there. Take a look at that rock. Do you understand what I'm saying? You're not moving that rock. You can blast it, but it's not gonna. You're gonna have to blast the whole mountain. Is what it comes down to. Okay. I'm gonna go through that. I'll show you what that map is later. Now, what you're looking at here, this is a breaker. Okay, look at the size of that thing. Said to be the world's largest breaker. They have them up here at the stone quarry. The stones come out of the ground. They break them into various sizes. You want to do a driveway, you want the smaller, the 2B rocks, the 4Bs. You want the bigger rocks. This is a breaker right up 81 at Monoy City, Monoy Area School District. Not too far, just on the other side of North Schuylkill. But that one was there. Now they started dismantling it, but a lot of it's still there. They basically took what good steel they had and took it to a recycling plant, got money out of it. But you can see the size of that thing and the amount of undertaking that went into that, working there. Also, keep in mind the amount of dust you would have coming out of the coal. Okay? But that was the world's largest. All right? Each level had mules in a hospital. Okay? I do want you to know that. Hospital. Nicholas, right down hospital. But understand that the hospital, I'm not talking about manned by a doctor. No. They'd kind of do some first aid, but that was it. Okay? And there's an example of it. Those men attending to the patients, that they are not doctors. Okay? If you get hurt, you could go there.
It's just unfortunate.
Just kind of like patch them up and get them out the door. That one's actually out at Lansford, the number 9 mine. But this was kind of interesting. I want you to know the Black Maria. The Black Maria. Now, as you can see there, it's the Short Mountain Colliery hearse. Does anybody know what a hearse is? Go ahead.
Transport's pretty much what transported that body.
Yes. Would you believe they actually had one of these at the Short Mountain Colliery? Say it again?
Wouldn't surprise me.
No, I guess not. We talk about the dangers and things like that. But how would you like to work at a company that actually has a hearse as part of the company?
It's part of the job. Your job.
I
You know what
know.
you're getting into.
But I can remember a parent saying one time they don't like their son playing football because there's an ambulance there.
Yeah.
I get that. But at the same point,
There's risks with that.
by the way, he was a good player and he played anyway. The kid didn't care what mom said. He was playing. But imagine going one step further, a lot of steps further, and saying, well, now we're going to have a hearse on the payroll.
Well, I'm sure they didn't want to take anybody's dead body in their own car.
Well, I get that, but still, that's pretty, it's pretty crazy. It's kind of like they say a broken arrow is a stolen nuclear weapon. It's kind of scary the fact that it happens enough that they actually have a name for it. But that's it. Not a great picture. All right, piece rate. Most of you understand what that means. Anybody know what piece rate is? Can I explain it? Piece rate is when you get paid by what you do, or paid for what you do. Okay? You get paid for what you do. In other words, you get paid per, and put this down, it's not up there on the screen. I want you to know this. You got paid by the yard.
Cubic yard?
Bingo. You got paid by the yard. Does anybody know what a yard of concrete is? If you ever put a pavement out or something like that, sidewalk, you actually
That's a square yard.
say again.
That's a square yard.
It's a yard is 3 feet by 3 feet by 3 feet. Okay, that's what a yard is. So you actually got paid by the yard, and each coal car would hold about 2 yards, and that's what you got paid for. Okay, so basically you're getting paid in the same measurements that you measure concrete. Okay.
Incentivization.
What's that?
So it's incentivization.
Oh yeah, a lot of incentives. You didn't get paid by the weight because the problem is there's a lot of water in coal. So they didn't want to pay you by what you actually produce ton wise, because what happens is they'd be paying you for water. Now, let me pause here for a minute and explain that. Think about it. You dig down in the ground, you're going to hit water. Anybody have a well at their house? You understand what I'm talking about. Okay? So what they were doing was you dig in the ground, you get water. Well, coal is very wet when it comes out. Okay? And it has a lot of water mixed in it. Which is, put this in the back of your mind there, that's one of the reasons why the coal companies started shutting down. Demand, yes, people burned other things. The other thing was, as the coal got deeper, the mining got deeper, they would hit more water. And they were actually spending more money to pump water out than they were making a profit mining coal. And that's one of the big reasons why the mines closed. Doesn't mean there isn't any mining going on. There still is, but nowhere near like it was after World War II. Okay, problems. Dangerous working conditions. We understand that. You have a hearse on staff. Of course, we're going to think of that. In a 62-year period at Short Mountain, just in Short Mountain Colliery alone, 187 miners were killed. Now, finally, by 1933, the Great Depression was occurring, and that number was actually starting to go down then. But that's just there in lichens. 187.
It's not even cave.
Right. The cave-ins actually happened later. In Williamstown, roughly the same period, 267. Now think of the population around here. Think of the population of Williamstown. Now I realize that's over a 60-year period, but still, 267, that's a lot of people in just Williamstown alone. Now, not everybody that worked there was from Williamstown only. I mean, some people came from Elizabethville and other areas, but that's still a lot of people. You know, 450 roughly to 500 people dying. $187, 267. What would be another danger? Anybody else? No, anybody know another danger? Well, the mules, yeah, you got to be careful. There's something else though. When you dig in the ground, you got to be careful. Methane, the gases, and I do want you to be aware of that too. The methane gas.
That's what caused a lot of cave-ins.
The problem was with methane is that you can't see it. Okay, it's invisible. It's odorless and tasteless, just like carbon monoxide. Okay. All right, let's read through the left side there. Austin, please.
Before the invention of devices called methane detectors, coal miners relied on the canary to warn them of the presence of toxic gases in the mine section they were working in. The miners would take a canary bird in the small cage to work with them in the sections. Being so small, if there were gases like methane, the canary would pass out and most likely die. This gave the miner a warning to escape from that area before he would be overcome himself.
Could you imagine that? Your life depends on the canary. Now, also, please note this. With canary, I also want you to put down mice and rats, which you did see those in the mines naturally. Okay, there were mice and rats that they would use in the cages. But at the same time, I want you to understand this, or I want to be clear in explaining this, I should say. It was actually, well, let me say it this way. You'd be fired if you would kill a mouse in the mines or a rat. They'd fire you. Because if you go in that mine and you see the mice are dead and the rats are dead, then you better get out of there quick.
Yeah, when you kill it, how are they going to know?
Exactly. Exactly. So they would use mice and rats also in addition to the canary.
Well, even if it was running around and you stepped on it?
Well, if it was an accident, they might cut your brake, but
If you purposely-
I mean, it's not. I'm not going to say they were unreasonable people. It's not like the bosses were out to fire everybody. You need your workers, but If you did it maliciously, you'd lose your job. Let's say it that way. Okay. All right. So methane is odorless, tasteless. We get the idea. Other dangers: nitrogen, sulfur dioxide, and carbon dioxide. And you don't need to know all of them. Methane's the big one. Carbon dioxide. If you know that, you got it. You get the idea. The thing that's good, if there is anything good about sulfur dioxide, is what? Anybody know? Sulfur you can smell.
Yeah.
Okay, sulfur you can smell. All right.
Hard to pick out.
Well, it's hard to pick out the source, but it definitely smells. Okay, one last thing I want to mention today then, child labor. Child labor, the most common form of child labor, and please know this, the breaker boys. The breaker boys. As I mentioned in the beginning of the period, coal comes out in various sizes. It gets broken into different sizes. The breaker boys' job, they would work in the big breakers, and their job was to sort the coal. That's what they did. Okay? The breaker boys could be anywhere as young as 7, old as 14.
The reason I got discontinued is because some would fall in and get crushed.
Exactly, and that's why a lot of breaker boys were killed. And I do want you to be aware of that. Most of the fatalities were actually to the breaker boys. Okay? They would work under the conveyor belts, the breakers, coal would fall off, they would get hit, killed. Now, let me also tell you this other thing I want you to be aware of. If you were a boy and you went to work with your father, they would pay the father extra wages, not you. Okay? The money went to the father. All right? Okay. 75% in 1905. I do want you to know that. 75% of the deaths were breaker boys. And many boys did leave school as young as 7 years old. And they go work in the mines. It's not like they sat at home. They went to the mines, and that's where they worked. For the most part, probably 6 days a week. Okay? But in 1905, 75% of the deaths were breaker boys. One other thing with breaker boys I want you to be aware of is what's called the red tops. Now, I realize you're probably thinking fire and maybe their lights. That's not what I'm looking for here. Does anybody know what the red top would be? Think of the boys and they would have red tops. What do you think that's referred to? Good. It's actually not that. It has nothing to do with the
The
hat.
hoses on their heads were getting hit.
Close, but not head. If you use your fingers and you pick through rock all day long, eventually it's going to hopefully cause calluses, but it could easily cut your fingers. Your skin just can't keep up with that. And a lot of times their fingers would bleed, and that's what the red tops are. It's the tips of their fingers that would be bloody. Now, take a look at this. This is a breaker. So what would happen is the boys would be in here, and the coal would come down, it'd be broken. You can see some up in the windows. They might go up to try to get a breath of fresh air. It'd be very loud, deafening, dirty in there, and they could easily fall off, get hurt, die as a result of that. Okay? There's a good picture of the breaker boys. Imagine sitting there and just sorting coal all day long. That's what you're doing. Okay? But that's what they were doing there. Those are the breaker boys. Okay? Obviously, I've shown you this picture in U.S. history class already. This was up in Williamstown. Take a look at the number of boys who were there. Over there on the left, you can see also a good picture of the boys sitting down, sorting, and that was their job, to sort the size of the coal. Very few boys actually worked inside the tunnels, but they did work outside of the breaker. Okay, we'll pick up with this reading then another time. We'll pause here for today. Have a good day.